Welcome to Business Cake. This is a show where we talk creativity, work, and ideas. In today's conversation, Patrick and I check in on our own projects. We discuss mindsets, rhythms, routines, and really just loving the process. Making the cake, if you will. Sounds fun. It is. One note on entrepreneurs, which we dive into. It's not a personality trait. It's a discipline. Observing and acting. Because of this, you can have an entrepreneur in any industry at any size or scale, from a small mom and pop to a large corporation. By shifting resources, entrepreneurs create value. It's not just doing something better, but differently, being willing to try, to learn, and to try again. And I find this hopeful, especially today, in today's world and economy. Peter Drucker, one of the foremost thinkers of the 20th century when it comes to business, says the force of an entrepreneur is always greater than the current state of the economy. People that are looking to create value, looking to make an impact, to change the environment around them, these are the kinds of people we want to talk to, the stories that we look to share, and the conversation that we want to cultivate. Thanks for listening to Business Cake. Let's dive in. Dude, how was how was spring break for y'all?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's been fun. I've been working really, really hard since the beginning of the year to have clear routine and rhythms of work. And so I thought I was doing a really bad job at it until this week when we're traveling, people are in town, and I realized I am a fish out of water already, not having my routine. Like, I didn't do any of my routine things. I didn't use my task list that I've been using. I didn't use my planning times. I didn't use my, any of those rhythms and tools that I've built in. And I'm just like lost. So outside of that, I mean, it's great. We went to a concert on Saturday night, and then I took all the kids, and it's, 10:30 at night, downtown Atlanta. The parking garage is packed, and it's going to take an hour to get out. And so we go to Waffle House to eat, and we finish about midnight at Waffle House. So we're walking through downtown Atlanta, Centennial Park, back to the parking garage with all my kids. And it's not usually a place I would take all my kids for midnight Saturday night.
Are they just shot at this point?
No, dude, they're like hyped, man. Like, the concert was fun. Like, eating Waffle House was fun. They're just like up for anything. And Atlanta has this big Ferris wheel. I think it came from Pensacola, Florida. I don't remember where it came from. And it was all lit up. So we walk out of Waffle House and it's all lit up. We walk by it to go towards the parking garage. And there's a dude standing on the side of the road with a parrot and a ring-tailed lemur on his shoulders. And I kind of was wondering what was going on. It's like, yeah, why is this dude standing? Like, I understand in a touristy area, like, people are passing through and they're taking photos. It is just midnight. I mean, there's not a lot of people around. This guy has these animals on his shoulders. And I was like, hold on, Melody, I got to go talk to this man and find out what's going on. So he was like, yeah, these are my pets. I'm just hanging out. And so we took pictures and video of the ring-tailed lemur jumping all over the kids. And it was such a wonderfully bizarre experience that I was like, the kids don't understand. And their idea of downtown Atlanta in the middle of the night on the weekend is something that's probably not as accurate as it should be.
Definitely not. But whatever it is, that is a high bar. A concert, Waffle House, and then this dude. Did they have names? Did he tell you the names of his parents?
Yeah. Musa or something like that, I think, was the ring-tailed lemur. The parrot was asleep. Like, his eyes were closed, and he was just sitting on the shoulder of the dude. So we didn't mess with the parrot. And those things can be kind of ornery. So, I mean, that was quite the experience. And then the next day we left for a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains. And I booked this cabin because the creek is supposed to be about 6 inches deep. So you just wade in it. The dog can jump around and it's fun. But it had rained and it was over 4 feet. And the current was so strong that we couldn't get in the water. So we found other things to do. It was just quite also a surprise. Like when we show up and it's like, here's this raging torrent in the back of what's supposed to be a babbling brook. And it was like, all right, that's fine. Like pivot, we'll do something else. So we did. And we had a good time. And then the kids got to go to the offsite of Georgia Aquarium. So it's where they rehab animals. It's not for people, visitors and stuff. And so Meredith let us in and showed us around, and it's more functional. So they have 5 tiger sharks, and they have, some other animals that they're getting back to health to send to wherever. So,
yeah.
So, I mean, that's been fun. And then I'm ready to kick the kids on back to school on Monday and get back into my rhythm and routine, which is something that Patrick Curry has never said in his entire life.
We've got it documented here.
I'm feeling
Wild. It. I mean, it's not great timing for a spring break. Does it usually fall at this point where it's for you right at the end of tax season? That seems less than ideal.
I don't have enough memory cells to recall all the previous spring breaks and tax seasons, but it seems like there is always some amount of interruption that happens around tax day that's appropriate or inappropriate.
Fair.
Yeah.
Maria was equally surprised when she realized she needed routine.
When did that and how did that come about?
That was a couple of years ago. So relatively recently. But I was seen as the routine guy. And ever since I lived with Sebastian, when I moved to San Antonio, I've maintained that everybody has routine. It's just some people's routines are maybe more intentional or I don't know, like
natural.
More natural. Yeah. But there are things that you find yourself doing. I think that's where systems are helpful, because it's like the stuff that you intended to do, you won't lose track of, and you can do them. And it's not just whatever you're thinking of in the moment.
But I think for me in particular, in this season of my life, like I'm headed towards a very specific goal. And to get to that goal, I have to do specific things. And so, like my business coach 2 meetings ago was like, Patrick, you need to celebrate. Take the weekend and just have fun and celebrate. Like you're doing such a good job. You don't even realize it. And I thought, okay, I'm going to celebrate. But in the back of my head, I was like, I disagree. Like I agreed verbally, but I was like, I just don't feel it. I don't see it. I'm not there.
Yeah.
And then this week has shown me, wow, like so much growth has happened in 3 months. And, having this guy that I meet with every 2 weeks, and, he's given me a lot of tools that have proven to work for him in achieving a particular goal. So I think without that, I wouldn't be saying this. I wouldn't be talking about routine. And I'd probably be like, yeah, life is fine, but whatever. Which is kind of what I've done in the past, just like chasing whatever glitters.
Like a crow.
Yes. Like a magpie.
A magpie. Yeah. That has your business coach also because you've pivoted with Jaje, where you are now offering fractional CFO work. Would that have happened regardless of whether you had the business coach or not?
No,
or did that help?
It was definitely. He didn't say, "Hey, you need to pursue this," but in our first couple meetings, I was a starter, serial entrepreneur. Like, hey, let's do this, chase this idea, and I'm good at reifying, taking an idea to concept, and so I had several endeavors and initiatives and I'd work on each one a little bit at a time and move them forward and find key partners. And it wasn't all relying on me doing the work. But in the first couple of sessions, he said, you're going to kill 75 to 80% of this. And so that's what we did, is we just let most of it go. And not necessarily where I ended it, but I stopped putting time and effort towards it. And so in that, focusing on very specific things, because he's like, well, we work towards, where do you want to be? It's simple to talk about. The challenge comes in execution, where it's like, where do you want to be in 5 years? Well, I want to be here. It's like, like Dylan Simpson with trucks, right? 5 trucks. Like, where are you going to be in 5 years? I want 5 trucks. So then it's like, okay, well, bringing that back to, what do you need to be doing Monday at 11:30 a.m. to get to that goal?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm, building my business. But it's like, that's too broad. You might stumble into 5 trucks. But if you actually want to be there, this is the process that works. And so in the focusing and narrowing of what Jaje, my company, was doing, I began to research the offerings we had, and we were bookkeeping first. Like, that was our first foot forward. Financial admin, like helping businesses operate. And in doing that, I came across a couple opportunities. One of them was from you through Keith Ross. Another one was from another brother, Jean-Luc. And these fractional CFO opportunities came up. So I was like, cool, I'll do this. And my business coach actually didn't like it, because he said, well, this is still you doing the work. And the idea is like, we're trying to build, without you having to spend all your time doing it. So I took the first one, kind of walked that through. It ended, but not because of anything I was or wasn't doing. But in that process, I came across a guy named Michael King, and I met with the other fractional CFO coaches. And there's a million out there. Like, don't Google it, because all your Facebook and LinkedIn ads are going to be flooded with that if you do, because they track everything that you Google, and there's a million out there, and they're very aggressive and like, hey, we'll help you build your firm. But this guy, Michael King, with the CFO Accelerator, has a ton of free material, and I used a lot of his material to win this client from Jean-Luc. And I used it to clarify scope, sales process, organizing the system, so it's not relying on me on like, what does it look like to onboard a client. And in that, I realized we don't need to be bookkeeping first. We need to be fractional CFO first, and then turn around when they need it and add that as a service.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we're, Michael King and his company, they don't do bookkeeping. We, in who we are as a company, won't ever get away from that. I have some of the best bookkeepers in the industry, and we have such a good system. We've been doing it for 11 years, and so it's like, yeah, it's been our bread and butter, but I think it will become the icing on the cake, if I can mix those metaphors.
Icing on the business cake. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Is
now
just semantically, is it the icing, or is it, because it's kind of still core, and the fractional CFO stuff you're doing, it doesn't necessarily depend on your team doing the bookkeeping, but it depends on the bookkeeping happening well.
Well, Yeah, but I'm saying like our services as offering bookkeeping will for us be the icing on the cake. So we might not be doing bookkeeping for every fractional CFO client we have, but instead of leading to say, hey, we're a bookkeeping firm, we also do payroll and tax and fractional CFO. I'm going to say, hey, we're a fractional CFO firm that offer also whatever else it is that you need along the way, shoe shines, etc.
Yeah.
Nose hair trimmings.
That's important for some subsegment in the market.
It's all virtual though, so
that'll be difficult. Trim your own nose hairs, and I'll just tell you, like, you still have some. It's interesting to hear you talking about this with the coach, because coaching is something you have done for years. There was one guy at one point who said, I'm going to hand you all of my coaching clients. I want you to take it over so I can retire. So you're very familiar with coaching, with the value that it brings, probably with the right things to say to people. And I'm sure you knew the right things to say to yourself. But the value in having somebody call that out and then hold you accountable to it is very, very helpful.
Yeah, it's massively helpful. And yeah, if I went through the list of things that my coach and I are working on, it would not be interesting, because it's like, yeah, I've heard of that. For instance, the important and urgent quadrant.
Right.
Yeah, like everyone talks about it all the time. It is not a big deal. But what we do is I fill it out based on how I spent my time, and he looks at it and says, what of this can you automate, eliminate, or delegate? And we actually go through how I spend my time. And so, and lining those actual things up with that end goal. And so, yeah, I mean, I almost didn't sign up with this guy because like, I know all this stuff in my head. I know it. I've known it for a long time. Like it's not rocket surgery. And so why the coach? And for me, paying this guy a few $100s a session to follow up on it. And the other thing that he did is he challenged me to think big, which one of the conversations we had with another Business Cake unrecorded guest last year, by the guest request, was thinking big. And so instead of just going for Elizabeth Fauerso also mentioned it in the book that she recommended, but instead of just going for what's in front of you, or honestly what you even think is possible, like some of this is me thinking outside of what I think is possible, which it kind of breaks away that the limits that I put on myself and like my normal thinking patterns to be like, all right, well, if we're going to do this, then we're going to go that far. It's like, well, how are you going to get there? It's like, I don't know. Is that possible? I don't know.
Right.
But this is what we're going to do. And so I set some of those goals at the beginning of the year with, again, verbal agreement. So external agreement, internal doubt, right? Like this doesn't make any sense. But then things start to come together. Things start to line up. These clients kind of come out of nowhere. This path starts forming. And I didn't make the goals with the path clear. And so, it's kind of funny to me just watching it all happen, because in some ways I'm a spectator, because I'm not the one forcing all of this. I'm not the one driving all of it. But in other ways, I'm at the very front of it, making it happen, because without me saying, we're looking for fractional CFO clients, we're looking for businesses between 2 and 40 million that don't have a CFO, that need guidance, then people wouldn't come to me to say, hey, I know somebody that needs that.
Right.
And so, so the thinking big part has been a big play. Like even when I turn in this proposal, I don't know if any of my clients listen to this, but when I turned in the proposal, I doubled my highest number for our final proposal. And that's what he took. And I almost lost 50% of the revenue on this project for no reason, just because I wasn't thinking. And now that I'm thinking like that, I was like, well, we're going to make it X. And they took it and never brought it up, never complained about it, never said anything. And it was like, how, okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm still kind of processing through it all. So I don't have all the words to put around the emotions or sentiments or intangibility of what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of like, all right, Dylan, you want 5 trucks, like in 5 years, like that's too long and too little. Let's think shorter and bigger. Right. If he really wants that, because then it comes down to, do you really want this? Right. And that's where you've got to do the work to commit to it. But anyway, that's going on.
That's good. It's challenging to hear, I think. And I think I'm not sure why, but there is that element of discounting or discomfort when you're talking about the value and how you are looking at your value or how it's going to be perceived and how that plays into the pricing and what you're going to offer. And I think there are probably some people who are very quick to place a high value and premium on them and like oversell that. And that's just like that self-assurance, and it comes and they're there. I think for you, for me, it's like breaking through that and saying, no, there's I don't know, maybe a tendency to, in the market perspective, undervalue. And then you're never going to make that. You're never going to climb out of it. But people are willing to pay for it if you put it out there.
Yeah, other people value what you bring to the table more than you do. Just in a general rule, like other people see it and value it and want it more than, and some people don't, this won't apply to, right? Because they're like hyper confident, ENTP, Pioneer 8-3 mentality that just are gonna, like, the world is not big enough for them. And right. That's fine. But I think, for me and others I know, I think realizing the value, and it doesn't mean that I can just half-ass it. Like, I have to now deliver. I've got to bring that value to the table on a regular basis that actually produces results. So I signed up for it. They said, great, we see that and we want it. And so now it's like, okay, now let me also prove to myself and to them that this value is actually there.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's a challenge that I'm like, this is why the routine helps too, because it's like, this is what I'm focused on. So I'm hyper focused on it. So 8 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning on a work day, I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm giving myself to.
There is I'm just going to quickly look up this guy's name. Was a French thinker, economic guy. I can only find his last name, Say, Say. But he has Say's law, which is you create the supply and the demand will follow. And a lot of people since then, the Keynes, like economic thinkers, don't like that because of in a market where there is a lot of supply, then it's oversaturated and the demand drops. But I think when you are creating something new, then you put that out there, and that's like the innovation. People don't. The demand's not there for what you're making because you haven't created the supply yet. You could see that with, I don't know, like the iPhone or something. On an extreme example, BlackBerry had the market cornered, and everybody wanted the click of the BlackBerry and the keypad. And when Apple launched their screen, BlackBerry was like, nobody wants this because the demand is for a crackberry. Everybody loves our phone. But Apple essentially created demand for it because and that's innovation. All of that saying, and I'll one more thing say this economic guy said is an entrepreneur is somebody who just takes a resource from a low yield area and moves it to a high yield area. That's it. So they find something that is not producing to its potential or to what they see it, and they find a place, a market, a demand, and it allows that. And I think in some ways, as you're walking through that, I'm hearing some of that where you took your value and it was in a low yield area.
Right.
You just kind of like switched your perspective. Instead of leading with bookkeeping, I'm going to lead with this fractional CFO piece. Like the value is actually higher here. You switch that and then you found it. It's like you didn't necessarily, the demand I think was there, but you were able to meet it. You're able to find it because of that. And that's being entrepreneurial. The Peter Drucker, another business philosopher, thinker of the 1900s, talks about anybody can be an entrepreneur if you are just doing that. Low yield resource, move it to where it'll produce. You can be in a corporation, you can be healthcare. It does not matter your field, your industry, your position, your title. You can do that, and that's a discipline you can work on. You can become a really good entrepreneur regardless of where you are if you're thinking in that way. And that's why people that just open a restaurant or open a car wash or, it's like you're not necessarily an entrepreneur just because you start something. That's not being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur is finding the resource and saying, where are we going to get more value and being able to create that. Just interesting. I think some of that plays in with what you're talking about.
Yeah, it does. And I think it applies to more than just business, which I think is important. I don't ever want us to just be focused on like business stuff, because business is a part of life, but it's not all of life. And money is the same, where it is necessary. And some people make their lives about that, and that's fine. But without it, you can't do much. And with it, you can do some. And with a lot of it, you can do a lot. But I think thinking about low yield, high yield, like from an artist perspective, if they're making music at their house, maybe recording it, or if they're painting pictures and they're keeping them in their living room or whatever, and maybe they've gone to a flea market or an art show or something like that, it's not, maybe it hasn't taken off because they haven't hit the market, or thinking about like sand grain, right? Where it's like he was doing it and then put it in a place where it could turn into a high yield, not necessarily intentionally even, but it did because it was a resource and it was a unique value.
When it was something he got value out of, decorating his house with these posters in a way that it was his interests, but his wife allowed him to put it up because it looked cool. Mm-hmm. But that is not what it was. Low yield when it's in his house, and the minute you put it out there and it creates value for other people, they're like, I want that. And I think that's the thing with value is people are willing to pay for it when you're like, because it's valuable. They're like, yes, this is worth me putting whatever amount. Yeah, I'll put it down because that's going to make an impact. It reminds me of our conversation that we just had with Sandeep and the diabetes wellness that they're doing, where he's saying he's going to make an impact in people's lives, and by doing that, it's going to be something valuable that people will want to pay for. And so I don't like the contradiction where if you are making money, you can't also make a positive impact. I don't think those are, and just because you're making money doesn't mean that you are a selfish capitalist. So
it's true.
I think it's finding that blend.
Well, I think it's hard because most of the people that we hear about that are making money aren't necessarily doing it for the good of those around them. And so people have, maybe some aversion to that. But I think there's a lot of people we don't hear about. And you and I know a lot of these people that are doing a lot of good with the money that they've made.
Yeah.
And spent a lot of money.
Well, that's why we're doing these conversations and recording some of these, is because I think a lot of the people we've talked to are these kinds of people. And we don't hear about them because these aren't the kinds of people that are putting themselves out there and saying, look at all this stuff that I'm doing. They're the kinds of people that are just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to, use this platform to highlight that and say, these are examples. You can do this. This stuff is possible. Be inspired. Go build, create value, make money, make an impact.
Yeah. Like, what value do you like to create, and where is it in a low resource area that you can move it? Is it low resource? Is that what you said? To high yield, low yield.
Low yield. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I love that can be a discipline. That can be something that you get good at. You can learn to see that and say, oh, if I just move this here,
mm-hmm.
it's gonna yield 10 times more.
No, it's good. So that's a good question to think about for people, for you, for me.
Yes.
My dog won't get much out of it, but that's fine.
Y'all got a cute puppy.
Oh, thanks, dude. He's not house trained yet, so that's fun. Well, what else have you been working on or thinking about?
I was listening to LeBron James and Steve Nash.
All right.
Come on. LeBron's one of his production company has a show podcast they put out called Mind the Game. And they just talk basketball. And they did one season with this guy, JJ Redick, who's now LeBron's coach. LeBron and Steve Nash. Steve Nash, from when I was a kid, one of my favorite players. LeBron, I've enjoyed watching. So two of my favorite players in basketball of all time.
Okay.
Talking the game, the craft, the discipline. And two things that they brought up that I've been thinking about, and it's helping me as I am in these stages of forming our distillery and trying to get this thing off the ground. The build and the working with small businesses, consulting, buying, exiting, like all of those conversations we're having, like Maria with importing. It's like all these things, it's these formationals, we're creating it. We're not necessarily seeing any return or reward yet. LeBron was just talking about falling in love with the process. The reason why he is playing in his 22nd year in the NBA at a high level and loves it is because he loves the process. And yes, he loves winning, but he embraces waking up early to get a workout in, doing the routine, going and catching a nap, stepping, it's like all the little sacrifices that it takes, the grind. He's like, you just have to love it. And if you don't love the process, it's one of the things that he tells young players coming in that are on the team. Like, if you don't love the process, then if you get injured, you're not going to rehab the way you need to rehab to get back on the court. And I think that's part of the how I am learning to manage myself. Like the little tasks that are easy to push off because they're nagging, No, that's part of the process. Like, you've got to do that. Those are maintenance tasks. Those are important things. Answering emails responsively, part of the process. It's like little things where you just can create disciplines around. You got to embrace it. I was sitting there. One of the things for me is I have to move. If I don't move and work out, then my brain starts going haywire and I spin out. And so that's a priority for me. I was sitting there running on a treadmill and it was lame and I hated it. And it's like, oh no, this is I got to embrace this process. Like, I'm not going to win a championship, but this somehow is going to help me be a better entrepreneur. Like, this is going to have a benefit for me. So embrace the process. There's one more piece, but before I jump to that, do you have any response or thought to it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's input based. That's something that I've always, well, I wouldn't say always, but the last like 8 years been focused on is the outputs aren't necessarily in your control. I'd actually say they are not in your control. Let me just say that. It's an absolute. What comes out is not in your control. Inputs are in your control 100%. And so what you're inputting is really, really key. And this is something where it's like I knew it in my head, but now putting it into practice in a different way. My business coach has helped me to make that real. And so I think that's what the process is being in love with the inputs that you know you want. And as you get into the rhythm and routine of doing that, the outcomes that you're interested in, you can shape them, right? So you can, it's like you will reap what you sow.
Yes.
And so in that way, you can affect the outcome. And so that's what I think is interesting about somebody like LeBron, who it's not about winning for him. It's personally, like when it comes down to it, it's not about the money. It's not about the fame or whatever. It's about, personally, on a human level, I love this process. So, I'm like, all right, so this is the for me, this routine, like, all right, I love this process. I love setting this stuff up. And that's where I've been off this week, is I haven't done that. And I'm like, I need to get back to my process.
Yeah. It makes a difference. And I think that is the stuff that you can control, and it sets you up so that when something happens, it's like, if you've conditioned yourself in that right way, then you're ready for it. Like, whatever the circumstance requires. I'm going to butcher this quote, but somebody said you fall to the level of your
systems,
habits, your systems.
Clear, yeah.
And I think that's the process.
Yeah.
And, whatever you set up, whatever you've committed your time to, your mindset, whatever's been in your control, that's what you have to fall back to. So as little or as robust as that is. So it's just a challenge in these stages where I am expending a lot of energy and time and trying to get things moving. It's just, that's an important thing. What am I sowing? What are the inputs? What am I controlling? How am I having these conversations? All of that. So, the second thing that I got from this, so the first one was from LeBron. Second one is Steve Nash. He said, you can't cheat experience.
Yeah. Come on.
And but I hate that one, but he's right. Because
why do you hate that?
I think there, as the second son and the third child,
okay.
I part of my hack for life has been, let me watch my older siblings and then let me learn from their experience, and I'll implement differently and go.
Dude, that's so funny. You're welcome. I'm glad it's coming back to bite you. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I mean, that works to a point, but at some point, you have to have, it's you are developing and building out your own. I'm developing and building out my own experiences, and I am learning from that. And if I take the example of raising funds, I could talk to 50 people that have done fundraising, that have successfully had a Series A, Series B round, exited bid, whatever. That does not make me an expert at doing it. And so there's the difference between the academic knowledge and the know-how knowledge of, you just have to technically get in there and do it. I heard an anecdote to that with the country Switzerland, where they are known, right? They're the financial hub of the world. And they have largely had really mediocre education levels as a citizenship country population, but their education model and system is built on apprenticeship, not on academic achievement. And so they are practically learning these things and skills and resources and putting into practice on a daily basis.
Right.
They're not necessarily all PhDs in how to, we can build the perfect models of how it's going to handle your money, Mm-hmm. And so I think there's that piece where you can't cheat experience. You have to get in the arena. You have to get the reps. You've got to have the scars, and they're not failures. It's learning, and you are learning what's working, how to do stuff differently. And that then feeds into loving the process. Part of loving the process is loving that learning, failing fast, failing slow. However you're going to fail. It's part of it, but get back up, learn from the approach, and keep going. Somebody who does not do this in the basketball world, one more basketball reference, and then we can move on from it. But there's a player, Russell Westbrook, who just blew some of the games recently for his team in the final seconds, cost them key playoff positions. And
it was really his fault.
Yeah, it was his fault. And he's a veteran player.
Yeah,
he's won MVPs and, has made it to the finals before. But he does not. This quote resurfaced from when he was playing for the Oklahoma City Thunder, where he takes pride in the fact that he does not watch film. He does not watch himself. He's like, this is me, and this is I just play by my instincts and I go. And so it's interesting because you have somebody who is studied, like a LeBron, who is consistently trying to add and expand and tweak his game and learn, and he's just immersed into that and has grown. He's super talented, but if he didn't have that kind of work ethic, then he would have plateaued. Westbrook, super talented, super athletic, and is still making mental mistakes that you expect from a rookie. And it's man, I wonder, if he was watching himself and learning from those mistakes and saying, what could I do differently? And so I think as I'm in these formation stages, that's also what I'm thinking is you can't cheat experience. You've got to learn. And so I'm having conversations with distributors, and I have to learn what's working and what's not. I'm not going to have these perfectly, but I want to do the best I can. And then the next time a contract negotiation comes around, I'll be better, So
you can't cheat discipline either. It reminds me of the Jim Rohn quote. Everyone must suffer one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, but the pain of regret weighs tons.
Yeah.
And it's you've got Steve Nash on one side talking about you can't cheat experience, and LeBron on the other saying you can't cheat discipline. And, can you enjoy your life without those? Sure. But if you want to be successful in what area that you're in, right, then it's you got to do the work, and you got to get the experience. What was the context that Steve Nash was saying the you can't cheat experience?
Just in talking with younger players, when he was a veteran and, point guard on a team and that kind of thing, you have a super talented person coming in. They talk often about playoff scars and that kind of thing. Like, it's super talented team, but then they go against a veteran team and they lose because the veteran team has the experience. They know how to close out the games. They know how to prepare. They know all of the little things that it takes mentally. And a young team, like, you can't just fabricate that. You can't just be super talented and say,
right,
I'm going to win.
Well, it reminds me of Newcastle United just played and won the Carabao Cup against Liverpool 3 weeks ago. And last year they were up against Man United in the FA Cup and they lost. And it was one of their first final cup appearances in a number of years. And as they were interviewing all these players and whatnot in the wake of the win, they said, well, there are some things that we did differently. And you're thinking, yeah, okay, you did the final last year and now you're like a better formation, whatever. They said, we stayed in a different hotel because the last hotel we stayed in was too close to the fans in the ground. And there was not a way for us to remove ourselves from the energy to focus as a team. And you're like, wait a second, does that really matter? But the thing is what you're saying, where it's like those scars of the high pressure situations, where you've been here before, you've done it, some tweaks to make that aren't necessarily on the pitch, but it makes a difference.
Yeah.
It's that veteran.
It's not your strategy in the game. It's strategy outside of it.
Yeah. And James Clear, has his 1% strategy that he mentions, the biking coach from England that changed the paint inside the van that transported the bikes. I don't recall the exact story. It's right at the beginning of his book. But he's just like, what can we tweak on the 1% all the way down that makes a difference? And it's like some of those things, you can read a book and know, or you can listen to somebody's stories and cheat experience in that way. But then other ways you can't until you do it and you have your own scars, because no one's living your journey. Like, you are the one living your journey and you have to figure out for yourself, what does this look like? So it's a new, it's a new experience. It's a new market, and no one can live that for you. And so I think, even on the fractional CFO stuff, I can take all this guy's material and I can take all of his advice and I'm still going to screw it up until I've built my own scars, and the last couple of years I've had a couple of scars, from projects that's like, oh, that didn't go well. And so I'm, it's not going to stop me from engaging at a high level. It's not going to stop me from thinking big, but I am also going to take notes as I go along, so I don't lose those lessons.
That is important. I think growth, learning. So it's good.
Giant Worldwide is a leadership development organization, and they have a tool. And it's just kind of been in the back of my mind. It's not 100% related to what we're talking about, but they say it's a lot of times self-limiting beliefs are the things keeping you from where you need to go. And is it prohibitive, like you are not allowed to do this? Or are these inhibitions that are saying, I can't do this, And I think most of the time, sometimes you run into things where you can't, you have to follow health code. You have to comply with the IRS, right? But for the most part, we live in a society and in an economy that's pretty wide open, obviously if you're going to jump into cannabis, you got to watch out for stuff. But outside of that, you could do a lot. And it's just who's going to stop you. Like yourself. That's who. So get out of your own way. Get on your horse. Giddy up.
Remove those inhibitions. Feel the rain on your skin.
Well, and that's where I'll stop you right there. But that's where
Thank you.
The business coach helps, because he starts uncovering these things of like, okay, you think this about what you're capable of, or you think this about yourself or about your business, and it's not like, if you really want to reach your potential, which that's a big thing for me, is like I'm tired of the word potential. Like, I hate it, because for my kids, sure, but I'm going to be 50 next month. I can't think like that anymore.
You have so much potential, though. Your whole life is ahead of you. The rest of your life is ahead of you.
Yeah. It's true for all of us.
Yeah, it is. Business Cake is produced by Sound Ops. The music is written by Philip Cusius, and this is hosted by Will and Patrick. If you enjoyed it, please rate us 5 stars wherever you find your podcasts.